There it is.
Hey there, Bill Hargenrader here, founder of The Next Level Life and I Love Mars, here with an interview today with Ron Sparkman. Today's interview is going to fall into the I Love Mars category. So we're going to talk about space, sci-fi, and of course all things Mars. So before I hand it over to Ron, let me give you a little bit of his bio here. Ron Sparkman is an entrepreneur, a former DJ who was inspired to chase a dream after watching the first episode of Cosmos. After this eye-opening experience, he immersed himself in the world of space. 6 months later, he emerged and was inspired to create a website called Opportunity U. The motto, reaching out to change the world so we can continue our journey to the stars together. On his blog, he shares everything from a how-to guide on understanding the universe to international museum reviews and information on ways to combat climate change. Like the majority of space nuts, he's completely enthralled with commercial human spaceflight and our future presence on Mars. His goal is to seek a degree in astrophysics, go to space, and to be involved in any way with the human settlement of Mars. Ron was added as a contributor to our I Love Mars community Facebook page, and where he shares his visions on our future of our planet as well as the red planet. And you can visit his site at www.opportunityu.com, facebook.com/opportunityu, or on Twitter at opportunityu. And I'll post all that information below the videos. So Ron, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great, man. It's a beautiful morning here in Colorado.
Great. No, it's so good to have you for this interview. You and I, we just chatted for about an hour about things. We could probably talk all day about Mars, all day about learning, all day about personal development, all day about saving the world. But we're going to focus a little bit more just on the Mars angle today and space. So let's just from your perspective, why don't you give our audience a little bit of background on a little more of that story about how Cosmos got you going.
Oh, okay. What happened with me? I've been a DJ for 15 years in a lot of the top adult clubs in the country. And one day I was off and Cosmos was coming on that night. I'd been seeing the commercials for it and I thought it was amazing. It seemed fantastic to me, but I didn't really know what it was. I had never heard of the Carl Sagan one. I was at one point very into science, but I was into paleontology and dinosaurs. That was my thing. So when this came up, it blew my mind. I really didn't understand, because you can hear those big, huge numbers about how big space is, but until it's visually shown to you what the observable universe looks like, it changed everything. In the first 17 minutes of that show, which I've shown to about 35 people now, I was done. It became a passion that is quite literally driven everything that I've done since then. It completely changed my world. It really did. And ever since then, I've just kind of ran after it. Everything that I can read, everything that I can watch, Audible, Kindle, anything I can get my hands on that has to do with space, I'm all over it.
So what was there one moment where were you sitting there and was there one scene or one thing that kind of you're just like, wait, I'm aware that my mind is officially blown?
Yeah. Honestly, when it started, he went and explained it to everyone, the Oort cloud, what it encompassed our solar system. And then it backed up from there. And then the one that really got me is there is one scene where on my 65-inch TV in HD, he goes, every single little dot you see is a galaxy. And it's like, how many worlds, how many ways of being alive? I started that show thinking that alien life was ridiculous. And by the time I was done, I was like, I want to be part of the team that proves it. This is it right there. And I just haven't been able to look back. Sometimes I forget that I'm even, this far in. It's already been a couple of years, and I look back and I look at my pictures and all the things I've been able to do, and it's been an amazing 180 for me.
Yeah, man. No, and even if you know that, or if you know it, the facts of it, just seeing it presented again or a different way or catching off guard it's a great reminder of, some people can say, oh, it's daunting, but for me it's kind of inspiring. It's like there's so much more for us to know, to explore and get out there. And for me personally, Mars is kind of like the next stepping stone for that. It's a way for humans to, for us to get to Mars, we got to come together, we got to collaborate internationally. It can't just be nations that are going. We have to meld, commercial entities, non-government organizations. I mean, what are your thoughts on, why do you think getting to Mars is kind of a big passion? Do you think it's something that's ingrained in you genetically? What are your thoughts on that?
I think what it is that I remember hearing about what the moon did for the world. When you hear people talk about the moon landing, it's we went to the moon. and it's people from everywhere. Even though America did it, it's everywhere. We haven't had that kind of large scale focus on one common goal as the Earth Tribe, as I call it, in ever, and I think that Mars is such a big thing that when we come together as that one planetary species focusing on one goal, it kind of allows us to see past the borders that we sometimes get so hung up on. And when we're able to work together and what we could possibly do if we were to be able to colonize the moon, if we were to able to go to Mars and stay on Mars. And when you get to Mars and the very first time that a human is able to really study it and not be able to only move like a couple inches a day, like the rovers are just like, I can go a couple hundred feet, when we can get out and put our feet there and be able to pick it up and test a sample, and to the things that we'll be able to do. And what I believe Mars will do is I think it could honestly change and should change humanity forever with what we'll learn there. And to me, I would just, to be a part of that, even the smallest, tiniest part is something that is amazing to me.
No, and that's awesome. And you mentioned even the smallest part. So whether it's you, so for me, I'm not planning on going to Mars anytime soon. Eventually, I'll get to Mars. My wife actually won't legally won't let me say I'm going to Mars. So eventually, maybe in the 60s, and 70s, age of my life will be part of the plan. But I still think it's just to contribute towards that effort. I mean, not everybody has to be that person that's going there, but it goes back to what you were just saying, that it's a collective entity that we are doing it and that we are pursuing it. So, so what are your thoughts on? I mean, International Space Station. That's a pretty big international effort. Some say it's one of the largest, most expensive, but also most effective peacekeeping measures. And then Mars. Like, do you think so? You touch on based on your thoughts on ISS. And then also on, should we go back to the moon before we go to Mars? Can we do both at the same time? What are your thoughts?
I think that there's a couple different people that have ideas that say that we should go to the moon before we go to Mars. And a lot of people think that we should use the moon itself. Buzz Aldrin's very big about that, about the way that he would set it up to where we would basically keep ships in space that would transit back and forth between the two. And when you're able to cut that much money out of the process, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more feasible. And for me, the International Space Station, going to Mars, and I honestly believe that even commercial space flights, I think it'll change things. Once people, the idea of going to space, and you hear about it from so many astronauts, you hear about it from guys like Ron Guerin, who write the Orbital Perspective. You hear about it from pretty much all of them, really, from Buzz Aldrin on. And what happened when they were able to see the Earth from space. Ron Guerin calls it the fragile oasis. And to be able to see it and realize just how small we are in this, all that vastness, is there that beautiful pale blue dot. It's like, as Carl Sagan couldn't have said it any better. And when you look at how amazing that is, I think that is something that allows us to step outside of ourselves and step outside of the problems and realize how small they really are and how important it is that we really work together. And you hear about the space station, and the Russians work together and the Americans work together and everything's fine. And they said, as soon as you get up there, politics go away. That's not what it's about anymore. Yeah. And I believe that it's something that maybe could teach us all something. And I believe that the consistent ability, imagine the kid being able to go to school and tell his friends that he did a suborbital space flight. It's now affordable to where people with $100,000 to spend can now go to space. $100,000 is a lot of money, but there's a lot of people that can go to space now. Once everybody starts seeing that, I think it could almost be like a cultural shift in the way that we see things. One of the reasons I want to go so bad.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, we could literally go on for like days about this. So we do have a little bit of schedule. So we'll let's cut back to what I thought was an interesting tie and an interesting story. And I'm a big fan of the book The Martian, the movie coming out, The Martian. Andy Weir as the author. Matt Damon is the lead actor in the film coming up. You had an interesting experience with Neil deGrasse Tyson. So you're at a show. There was some Martian stuff going on. Why don't you just let us know what was going on from your point of view?
Yeah, sure. One of my favorite things is Mars, and my current book that I was reading or listening to is the now award-winning and now soon-to-be famous movie, The Martian. While I'm sitting in the audience watching the guy that changed my life, I'm watching Neil deGrasse Tyson live. Great seat. He's right there in front of me. I am also taking pictures, taking notes, and filming the important things that he's saying and doing, because I'm going to report it later for Opportunity U. And then he brings up The Martian, and he live tweets his favorite line from the preview, where Andy says that where Andy says in the book, and Mark Watney, who is the character that Matt Damon plays, says, "I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this." And so he shows that on the big screen behind him, and everybody is laughing and applauding. And a little bit after that, on my drive home, Andy Weir is just stoked about it. He's put it on his Facebook page.
Yeah.
Said, "Hey, Neil deGrasse Tyson just tweeted about it." I was like, no. He didn't just tweet about it. He live tweeted about it to an audience with uproarious applause after it. Like, everybody was so excited about it. So I messaged him privately, sent him the video, sent him the pictures. He was like, "Hey, thanks." And while I had the chance, I was like, "Hey, man, would you have the ability to do an interview with me?" He's like, "Send me some questions." Well, first he said, "I'm really busy." The very first words I read was that. I was like, it was worth a try. He said, "So how about you just send me 5 questions? A couple questions." And I was like, "Yeah." I was so stoked.
Yeah.
And he is just a kind person, man. He would, he thanked me and gave me, it's just, I told him how great it was. And he's one of us. He's one of those guys that he was doing a regular job, man. And he wrote this book and he nailed the science and he nailed the humor and everybody loved it. Now it's going to be this huge movie and he's getting to live the dream.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. I'm an aspiring sci-fi writer myself. I'm a writer, but I'm looking to get things published, and it's very inspiring because it's, you would think that in this day and age that somebody that's writing about science, it's fairly hard science fiction with the reality of the equations and the math that he worked through, but he did it in such a way that it's hitting mainstream, and then people just love it. So for me, it's accomplishing twofold. One, it's going to entertain the crap out of you. I guess it's 3 things. 2 is like you're going to learn something, and then 3, it kind of just brings more cultural awareness for like, hey, like why aren't we on Mars yet? Yeah.
It's huge. The way he did it is fantastic because it is scientifically accurate, and he is adamant about that. I'm on it. That's one thing there's one thing you're not going to say about it. If you can say anything else about it, you want to, but I made sure I got that right.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's a few scenes that that aren't scientifically accurate. And he did it for story purposes, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm dreading the day that someday Neil deGrasse Tyson will read The Martian and call me out on this section." So I think in the very beginning, if you haven't read the book yet, plug your ears for the next 30 seconds or so. But at the very beginning with the storm on Mars, there's just not enough air pressure and density of the atmosphere to create that type of lift with lifting the antenna up and whatnot. But he's, you get to a certain point and you just got to. Yeah. So
there is one thing that I will say this, because not everybody has seen him. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that just because he is tweeting something about the facts being inaccurate in a movie does not mean that he doesn't like it. He said himself, he's like, I got a lot of press for the things that I said about Gravity. It doesn't mean I didn't like the movie. In fact, I did like the movie. I was just stating this is right and this is wrong. He said that just because you're going over some things doesn't mean I didn't like it. I still enjoyed it, but I just want to let people know the things that could have been done a little better.
Yeah. Cool, man. So moving on our list here. Thanks. So we're gonna move into speaking of sci-fi. What's a sci-fi movie of yours that maybe that's influenced you? And we'll keep. We talked about this earlier a little bit about our pregame show. More of a space focus. So what's one of your favorite sci-fi movies, and why has it influenced you, or why do you think it's so cool?
Most recently, especially with everything that I've learned in the last few years, is a movie called Prometheus, which is it's a prequel to Alien, but it's just basically in the same universe, which I'm totally okay with. A lot of people had problems with it, but one of my major things is, again, if you haven't seen the movie, that would be a good time to plug your ears for the next 30 seconds. At the very beginning of the movie, an alien species comes to an unpopulated Earth and basically seeds it. And the idea of that sounded fascinating to me. And then when I started studying, I found out about panspermia and the idea that, say, a giant meteor hit Mars and rocketed space pieces out into the universe. And then as we crossed orbits, bam, it slammed into us as well, populated the Earth, and we went from there. And in Cosmos, it shows how it could have seeded the galaxy at least at the very least our galaxy, and how much more could be out there. And the idea of other alien life, just to have so much out there, where do we really come from? We all have these ideas, but it's on such a bigger level when you come from that. We've been here for, life on this planet's been here for 3-4 billion years. What about the other 13 billion years or the other 10 billion years? So there's just so much to that. And then the idea just kind of ran from there that possibly we came from somewhere else, and where do our origins really come from? And it really is one of those things, because one of the characters was religious, but she still wants those. It doesn't matter. It's like, I still want the truth. And that to me was awesome. No matter your belief, the truth is still important.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that movie. And I think I've seen like maybe one of the Alien movies. So I've seen a lot of the Predator and the Alien versus Predator. So I'm one of the few people who haven't seen, and it's on my list. I got to get to them. So I'm coming from it from not really having that Alien background. And I thought it was enjoyable. I liked a lot of the ideas that were conveyed. What I didn't like was like the one guy, the geographic mapper guy with the mapping drones, like, got lost. I'm like, wait a minute, like,
yes.
Like, how did you get lost?
Yeah, I will say that there are some things that were very much done for what it seems like story purposes. But the overall themes of it got to me, and sometimes that's all you need. A movie doesn't need to be perfect for me to enjoy it, because that was my other thing before I became, even while DJing, the one thing I wanted to do was Hollywood. Like, I loved Hollywood, I loved writing, I loved movies. So I could very much be immersed in almost anything. But that idea is such a grand, beautiful idea to me, that everything in the universe is connected in a very truthful way, in a way that we could possibly prove if we could only get to say Mars.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome, brother. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna move on to you're an avid reader. I'm an avid reader. I got bookshelves, back there. I got tons of books upstairs. My wife actually, tells me to stop buying books, and I say never. I know we're always constantly saying, hey, you got to read this book, and I'm telling you, you got to read this book, and you're like, dude, I've got 5 books on my list. I'm like, just make this number 6. So
sure.
Let's give it like a top 3. And obviously it's gonna be hard to like say which is the best. So maybe just like of your top 10 favorite, nonfiction, pick like what are 3, and then also a fiction, what are 3. And if there's any one particular that you want to give a deep, detailed why, you can go for that. So.
Sure. Well, I will start with one that has been one of the most influential to me in the last few months. Is, I mentioned him earlier, there's an astronaut named Ron Sparkman who went to space and very much brought back the idea of what he calls the orbital perspective. That's the name of his book. And it's really fantastic. It just gives this idea that you get to see the world without borders, and what's really beautiful about it. You can see how fragile it is and how important that it is that we do take care of our world, because if we don't, it's going to eradicate us. And even more so, how we can be good to each other, and how we could possibly work together and realize we all came from the same place. One of my favorite T-shirts ever is that Richard Dawkins has. It says, "We're all Africans," and then on Africans, it's got his little red A in it. We all came from the same place, man. We're all the Earth tribe, even though we all think that we're different. And I love that idea, and just seeing a little bit more, just to take off the labeling glasses and just look at anybody you see as just being another part of your family. We all are a part of the same family. And it opens up that world to how much more you can, love and care about the things around you, and everything from how important the Earth is to how important your neighbor is. And so that was one that really did it for me. Another one that is major for me was Buzz Aldrin's Mission to Mars.
Yeah.
I had always heard some really great ideas about what going to Mars was going to be like. And there's actually a really great one that is a great supplement to that by Andrew Rader called Leaving Earth. But when he talks about that mission to Mars and that idea of how we can save so much money by doing these different ideas that nobody else has come up with, he's got a full plan to go to Mars. It's pretty much knocked out. That to me is incredibly inspiring, that there's not just him, but there's Zubrin, and there's so many other people that really have these ideas. So, we've got here's a plan. Let's get to Mars. And as you mentioned earlier, it's why aren't we there yet? And we had the reason with the Cold War before, and we need to find a really great reason. And now we've got, thanks to Elon Musk, we now have him and many other people, other entrepreneurs are just saying, hey, private space flight. It's really hard for me to pick a next one, but I would have to say Undeniable by Bill Nye was great. To really sit and understand evolution opened up my mind to the world around me. And where I came from and where we could go. And one of the ideas that he mentions is like, evolution hasn't stopped. Imagine what we're going to be like in 10,000 years, 100,000 years, a million years. What is humanity going to evolve into? How are we going to be better? What are we going to be? And that to me is fascinating. I love that. And there's a list of, I can do 10 or 15 more, man. It's hard to pick three, but those are just three examples. None of them are better or worse than any. They're just all a different learning experience.
No, that's great, man. What about SciFi or yeah.
Well, that's easy. By far the most influential thing when I was a teenager was Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park and my all-time favorite book, The Lost World, the second book. I was already so in love with dinosaurs, and then I read that, and somebody that spoke intelligently about what it was like and gave us a view into this world that we just thought they were these cold, calculating, destructive animals, and really they were so many of the species. To hear that T-Rex cared for its young, and a lot of times would just defend it, and just the ideas that came out of that. The movies are nowhere near the books, especially the second one. I won't even go into that. That'd be another 30-minute conversation. But by far, that was the most influential to me. And my first foray into science was I wanted to be a paleontologist, and a lot of it came from Michael Crichton. And I'm sad that we won't get any more books from him.
Yeah, and that's an interesting tie-in. Is actually I just started reading Jurassic Park, kind of on my own volition. I was talking to a friend who mentioned that he describes science in a really good way, but also tells a great story and weaves it in. Yes, so sir. I was like, hey, I'm reading Jurassic Park. Like, oh my God, this is my favorite book.
Yeah. The first one was amazing to me, but the second one had just, I realized that it was a sequel and they probably gave him money to write it, but it was just so influential to me because it clicked right around the time I really, really started understanding science. The first one was great, but he had so many great ideas, and he gave me a couple of different paleontologist type people to look up to in a similar way. He did it in a fictional way that Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and Michio Kaku and Lawrence Krauss did it on the science side recently for me. Yeah. And I thought that was fascinating. Like, wow, a paleontologist, a guy that digs in the dirt, and he found a way to make him interesting. And that's the most important thing about science, is figuring out a way to share it with everyone in an excited way that they can see it. And that's why I love these science communicators, the Carl Sagans, the Neil deGrasse Tysons, and so forth.
Yeah, no, and it's what's cool for me is I am writing. It's called Mars Journey. The Calling is the first book of a 3-book series of how we get to Mars, and it's near future. It's very near future. It's what we need to do to come together to make that happen internationally, as I said earlier. Also, the public support, public awareness, how that plays a factor. Also, the science that's available now or right around the corner that we need to develop. And so, for me to see him writing back in the 80s, I think it was, about happening at the same time. It was just a really cool way of him showing how that can happen. And in the beginning he has a disclaimer, like any mention of any particular place or person is it's not true, but it actually, he does it so well that as he's writing it, as I'm going through, I'm taking notes on some of the stuff. I'm like, is he making this up or is this real? He blends it so.
He's incredible with that. That is the amazing thing about him. One of the things that has since been talked about is that his idea of getting DNA out of amber isn't necessarily impossible. Now, after so long, it degrades to the point that you wouldn't be able to use it for dinosaurs, but you know what we could use it for? We could use it for woolly mammoths. We could use it for saber-toothed tigers. Why you'd want to bring a saber-toothed tiger back, I don't know. But when you look at the world at large and the hunger problem, not saber-tooth, but the woolly mammoth being brought back, could feed a lot of hungry mouths. It's a crazy idea, but it's one of those ideas. And to me, science is it's our magic. It's our way of understanding the world and seeing these things that just we can't understand and being able to explain them. And one of my favorites by Carl Sagan, I don't want to believe, I want to know. Show me about it. Tell me. And I love that. I love that about him. He made me interested. He made me want to go buy new books, and I want to read more about dinosaurs. And then I was mad because there was no more real dinosaur books like his. But give me more of that.
I went through the same thing where I was reading it actually in the Barnes and Noble at a real bookstore, and I was looking at it and I was like, let me look this guy up. What's he done? And he had passed away, a few years back, or I'm like, wow, it just kind of hit me, like all these great books, but at least he got his stories out there and influenced a lot of the world.
Oh, they named a dinosaur after him. They did, because he brought so much that a couple years ago they found one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's Crichtonosaurus or something, something along those lines. How could you not? Like, there is nobody that we're all fascinated with dinosaurs as a kid, and that's the only time that most of us can say names like Ornithomimimus. You know, it's like Procompsognathus. You hear these names and they're like, what the. You know, what is this guy talking about? And when you're a kid, it's kind of weird that you can get so into that, and when we get older, we can kind of fall out of it. But man, if he didn't bring it, and now it is the new movie that is nowhere near as great as the books. As it was the biggest movie of the year. It beat Avengers 2. Nobody saw that coming at the beginning of the year. Jurassic World was massive, and they're going to get to play in that world some more. So
yeah, man,
we get to see dinosaurs on screen. I'm happy.
It's my man, Chris Pratt, bringing the heat.
Yeah, he is on it. Star-Lord, man.
Oh yeah. So we got about 5 minutes left here on the clock. So what we're gonna do is I know that you're big into learning, and actually I'll do a book segue. What we're gonna do is gonna list all the books that you mentioned below the video, whether it's on my blog or if it's on the YouTube channel. So we'll get links out to them. Another one that I would recommend is if you haven't read it yet, and for the audience, is 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and it's all about taking distractions, minimizing them, so that you can focus on what's really important in your life. And sometimes what's important is learning, is actually getting to the next level with your knowledge set. So 4 Hour Work Week will tie in, but I know that you've got some thoughts on if you want to start this journey of learning about space and science. I know on your website you've got a list of 10 things. With the time we have left, can you just maybe list the top 3 on that?
Sure. Instead of doing the top 3, I think what I do is kind of do like a mix of everything, because there's within the top 10, there's a little bit of everything from TV shows that I recommend to books and websites. The first thing, that there is a top 10. If you do go to Opportunity you can read it on Your Journey Starts Here, and it gives you a breakdown. All you have to do is click on the links 1 through 10, and it'll take you to the different places that you can read about them. You can then maybe go to the website. You might be able to buy them from Amazon.com. The very first one that I want to mention, you can watch it on Netflix. It's been on Netflix for a while now. Watch Cosmos. If you get through the first episode of Cosmos and you don't feel more connected to the universe, then you didn't see the same thing that I saw. But I truly believe it is an eye-opening experience, and I just watched that first episode over and over again until the second one came out, and then I watched it over and over again. It just completely enthralled me. So number 1 on my list is watch Cosmos. It's easily accessible. You can still find it on, I think it's on demand. Nat Geo still shows it all the time. It's huge, especially now that he has his new TV show, Star Talk, out. And the second thing I'll say is find one of these learning websites, like Khan Academy, like lynda.com. Lynda.com is a pay site. Khan Academy is not. Khan Academy is an online school for free forever. He does a video series of everything from math to physics to chemistry, absolutely everything. And it's absolutely stunning to get on there and to be able to learn everything. It is actually how I'm teaching myself all the maths that I don't need for physics. The things that I just wasn't able to learn, he gives you these videos you can watch over and over again. It helps with learning. Lynda.com is very similar to what you mentioned. Finding those books that teach you things and finding these teachers that will give you these ideas to become more productive. You can learn everything from how to DJ with a certain DJ program to how to do better time management to how to develop a business plan. The site is really, really amazing. And there's more of them. There's udemy.com. There's things like that. And then really, if you want to go into the third one for me is to follow up, find something you can follow up with. For me, Cosmos followed up with How the Universe Works, another TV show. But you can do it in a million different ways. You can pick up a book. There's so many great authors, like the people that we mentioned before. You can go through that and pick any one of those. Really, once you get through the first couple of things, another one is find a great website. Big Think is huge. Big Think has Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku on the science side, and you can find all these great speakers. It's very similar to a TED Talk type thing. And any of those, I think, are going to be able to lead you into it. Find these great science communicators that are going to be able to tell you these things, these huge ideas in a way that you can understand. And I think those are just 3, like I said, we could go on for a while on that one. There's so many different avenues. The internet has opened up the world to us. Quite literally has opened up the world to us. You can learn anything and everything you want to learn. You can learn anything, and I am proof of that.
Yeah, brother, absolutely. So as we come into the final stretch here, what's what are some of the big things? One or two things that's going on, either a product that you're working on, a big article you're working on, or something, a big life event, mountain-sized life event, maybe.
Well, the next few big things that I have coming up is I'm going to be in Washington D.C. for the week of the 12th through the 17th. I'm going to go to the 18th International Mars Convention the Mars Society is doing. One of the things that I can't wait for is that a couple of MIT, I can't remember if they're graduates or if they're students there currently, are going to debate with the president of Mars One, and they're going to talk about if it's actually feasible. Is it a hoax or is it not? So that's going to be one of the major things, and he's putting himself right out front and center. I got to give him credit for that. If it's BS, man, that's one way to get it out to people. And I know that they've not really raised very much, but many of those things are going to be talked about, and you're going to have everybody in the sun there. So I'm really stoked for that one. I'm going to be live updating on the website. I'll be able to share the stuff on the I Love Mars page and on my Opportunity U page. So those are the big ones. And then the other big thing I have coming up is from September 1st to 21st, I will be in Nepal, and I'm going to do the Everest Base Camp trek. About a year ago, I got into mountain climbing, and one of the reasons that I moved to Colorado is that I get to hike and be in the woods every day. And it's kind of funny because I was born a mountaineer. I'm from West Virginia, and I never went outside. It was just not my thing. And now I'm completely in love with it and moved to a different set of mountains. Yeah. And this is going to be one of those things. My mom passed away earlier this year, and she loved to travel. And I have a little necklace that goes around my neck. I want to put some ashes in it, and I'm going to get as close as I can to Everest and, take a picture, and be like, hey, I took my mom to Everest, and that will also be that'll be an article on Opportunity U, how I took my mom to Everest. So I love it, man. And my life is it's so big. When I get back, I'm gonna start volunteering with the Space Foundation, and there's just so many things coming up. Start school in January. I'm excited, man. It's all towards space. As much as I can do here, so I can go up there.
Yeah, brother. No, it's awesome. It sounds like not sounds like I know that things are really taking off for you. So no, dude, this has been great. I'm sure we'll definitely have you back on for an interview. You'll see Ron posting and updating. I would have been with you at the Mars Society International Convention, but I'll be strangely enough, I'll be in France performing in a Shakespeare play. But we can talk about that another day.
I am also, don't forget that I am attempting to get Bill to write his first article for Opportunity U. I am trying to force him to go to the science museums that he has at his disposal while he's in Europe.
I accept that assignment. So
I accept that challenge.
It shall be done. I'll make it so. Awesome. So, Ron, we'll see from you in the future. I'm going to put all your links down below. We're going to wrap it up here. This has been interview production, Next Level Life, and I Love Mars. Remember, keep learning, keep improving, because whenever you upgrade your life, you help change the world for the better. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe for continuous updates. Give it a thumbs up or a like, leave a comment. We'll get back to you, and I'll see you on the next video. See ya.